Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We got a special guest here today. We've got Jesse Blaze Snider. So he's a comic book writer, musician, voice actor. Are you the voice of Pizza Hut or something there for a while?
Yeah, voice of Pizza Hut. I was the original voice of GameStop when, pre-order Madden, get good sooner. GameStop, nice. Power to the players. Motors, all sorts of stuff.
So you have this whole entertainment brand where you go across mediums, but you have a certain love for movies, comic books, and all that kind of stuff, geek culture in general.
Well, I think at some point people started to tell me that, it's impossible to make money as a musician these days. It's impossible to make money as a comic book writer these days. And, I'm very ADHD. I get bored when I'm not doing anything. So then I would just add new things to the lexicon. So I became a host, and then hosting led me to being a voiceover actor. And I work, consistently as a voiceover actor. And that really helps me to kind of do whatever I want to do my own music, do independent stuff, and not have to sell my soul, which I really like.
Oh yeah, it's nice to have that little thing in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Is it? So I got that going for me when he's got the Dalai Lama.
That's one of the best lines in cinema.
Love that one. So you went and saw Shang-Chi with the kids?
I saw Shang-Chi with my 4 children, and my kids are from, 5 to 12. And I literally left the theater and had to talk to my children about the morals on display in the movie. It was very frustrating to me. The first thing, let me just say, I'm an idealist, okay? So before anybody sits there and goes, oh, well, man, you're living in a perfect world. Yeah, that's why I read superhero comic books. That's why I write superhero comic books, because I like a moral ideal. I like to see the bar raised. I don't like to see it lowered. I don't want our heroes to be more like us. I want to be more like them. And this movie is such a lowering of the bar. And I haven't seen anybody talk about this, about how just morally corrupt it is. Essentially the basic premise is that Shang-Chi leaves his little sister behind in a dangerous and bad situation, and he doesn't know what becomes of her. And you see him goofing off with his friend, getting wasted at a karaoke bar at the beginning of the movie, and parking cars as a valet in Los Angeles. And I literally turned to my kids and I said, Cassidy, Grayson, if you two knew that your little sister was in a bad place and you did nothing about it, I would never forgive you. I would never forgive you for that. It is your responsibility to go and do something, to try and do the right thing. And this is just a father talking to his children. And I am an idealist, but I'm sorry, I would never forgive my children for leaving their little sister behind. And literally later you meet the little sister, you see what's become of her, and she's a self-made woman. She's got she's made a lot of money. She's got a whole empire, like a fighting ring, all this stuff. And I was just like, screw this guy. Let's follow the rest of the movie with his little sister. She's a compelling character who's doing some interesting things. Shang-Chi just disappears. And this is a little bit of a spoiler right here. It's really not spoiling much for you, but basically he was upset because when he was younger, he killed somebody. And he basically exiles himself because he killed somebody, and he won't go and face his much more evil father who set him up on the freaking situation in the first place and left his little sister to possibly be compelled to kill somebody as well. So I don't give a crap about the bull crap morality that they're like, well, he didn't do that because he was sad. And he's out in Los Angeles drinking with his friend while he still has no idea what's become of his little sister. What the F, man? Spider-Man taught us that with great power comes great responsibility. And what would Spider-Man be without that? He'd be a whiny asshole who's just constantly like, oh, no, no, no. But with great power comes great responsibility, and he keeps rising to the occasion to try to overcome being a normal schlub like us, because he realizes with great power comes great responsibility. Something that Tony Stark realizes when he goes out to, you know, in the recent films, you know, into Afghanistan or whatever it is, and he realizes that the power, all this technology he was making was falling into the wrong hands, and that he had a responsibility, that Steve Rogers committed to the responsibility of being the symbol of America. Even Thor is forced into responsibility by the enchantment that Odin puts on his hammer. Hulk is Bruce Banner has a responsibility to try to contain the Hulk, this crazy rage inside of him that could potentially destroy the whole planet if he doesn't figure out how to use it for a good fashion. You know, the greatest characters in Marvel and DC, they are all driven by responsibility. Even the Punisher, who, you know, is a immoral character in a lot of ways, an anti-hero, but he is driven by a misguided responsibility to prevent what happened to him from happening to anybody else. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. I'm going to make sure this never happens to anybody else ever again. No one else will randomly lose their children and their wife to a random act of violence in the streets of Manhattan. I'm going to stop this from ever occurring again. It's responsibility, man. Shang-Chi demonstrates zero responsibility throughout the entire film. He literally gets attacked and has a letter from his sister that he's been sitting on for a few months. And finally, after he gets attacked, he's like, well, maybe I should go talk to her, because since they tried to kill me, maybe they might be trying to kill her. And then he proceeds to basically be a passenger in his own movie for the entire movie. He's just sitting in the passenger seat as other people drive him around. Quite literally, later when they're looking for the mythical temple and he's just sitting there and is being driven around. It is just awful. And being that Shang-Chi is supposed to be an avatar for Bruce Lee, who is not a passive, you know, like participant in his own life, you know, a very active man. Like, I just watched a documentary on his life, and he was in America because he'd been sent here he was having a lot of trouble, and basically his family sent him to America, and he's teaching all the people here what he knows. He's actively using the knowledge that he has. He's actively trying to make a difference in the lives of people. He's adding all of this Eastern wisdom into dialogue. Like, he's writing dialogue in the movies that he's in. One of the movies that he's in that I love, I'm going to get the name wrong. It might be Fists of Fury, but he's literally fighting against the sort of Japanese racism that was going on. The Japanese and other people were being racist against the Chinese, and sort of making it like they were dogs and less than dogs. They were sort of, what's the word? Where they were good boys. You know, they would like listen to what the other people had to say. And he's there standing up. There's this great moment in the movie where he jumps up and he does this roundhouse kick and he kicks the sign that says no dogs or Chinese allowed. And he just breaks it into pieces. You know, that's the guy that Shang-Chi is based upon. And this movie has no resemblance to the man who inspired hundreds of thousands of people to engage in, you know, the martial arts. You know, a really balanced and respectable form of personal combat. It's not about going to pick up a gun and shoot things with a gun. It's about learning how to craft your body and to craft your breathing and, you know, to be something better than you were yesterday. And this, I just could not even believe it. And you know, the second thing I'll say before you give me the ninth degree was just the villain equally was just this nondescript, nothing of a villain. His name's Wenwu. And I couldn't tell that he was a bad guy. He's not the Mandarin. He's not Fu Manchu. He's nothing. He was kind of a nice husband. He was kind of a nice dad. He was just sort of like misguided in a lot of ways, and he wanted power. He was just like the most gray tone bad guy meets the most gray tone good guy I have ever seen. And it's just like the way that these things are depicted as like super heroics. Shang-Chi, super heroic, he is not. And it was just, yuck. I hated it for all of the things that it represented morally, and all of the departure that it was from what I love about comic books, and and later we'll talk about some of the things that Steve Ditko, how he broke down what it means to be a hero and how art is a measuring stick. And this film is of no measuring stick. There's nothing to learn from it. It is shiny and kind of entertaining and kind of like it's unoffensive. And I think that's kind of the worst thing about it. It's unoffensive. It does nothing. It does nothing. It does nothing that's worth remembering.
Just wrapped up in that like MCU like veneer. So it looks like an MCU movie. It feels like an MCU movie, but they forgot to put the heart of the hero into the film, which we've kind of been seeing a little bit in the MCU.
Yeah, there's no heart. There's no heart at all. And some of the visuals are great. Like I love the big dogs. There's some animated dogs in the thing, and phoenixes, and like there's all these really cool little computer animated things at the end. And there's some nice humor here there. But in general, it was just like, somebody else had pointed out sort of the dichotomy between the bus fight in Nobody, which is a great movie, and the bus fight in Shang-Chi. And like one of these things is not like the other. A completely bloodless, meaningless, like who gives a crap fight. The other fight is just in a bus that's just sitting there. And I was more entertained by the bus sitting there and this guy getting up and fighting a whole bunch of guys than this guy racing down the streets of wherever the hell they were, cutting the bus. And I did not give a shit compared to how much I cared when Nobody was fighting, on the bus. Like, and I mean, really, that's like, it's a crying shame. It really bummed me the hell out. I had hoped when I heard that the film was announced that it would be a little bit of a love letter to kung fu movies and be some sort of great karate movie about good versus evil. And there is no clear good and there is no clear evil in this thing, except for when Shang-Chi leaves his sister behind in the bed.
That's purely evil?
That's the clear evil for me.
Yeah, I guess you got to go to Kill Bill to find your homage to classic, kung fu films. And
I guess so. It really was just like
Quentin Tarantino does heroes better than Marvel. Who would have thought?
Yeah. It's funny. I think the quote that Steve Ditko says. It's funny. It's really hard to get a lot of like words out of the horse's mouth for Steve Ditko. You can get some things written, but there's like him speaking. There's not a lot, but there's a little bit of thing of him talking about Mr. A and sort of the generation for his character Mr. A, which is sort of a philosophy from Aristotle and Ayn Rand. And he says that Aristotle says that art is philosophically more important than history, because history tells us how men acted, like how we did act, and art tells us how men could and should act. And there's a lot of this thing now as we write things like, and it's cool when it's not my superhero mythology of making the people and the characters more like us. Yes. I don't want to see superhero characters more like us. I don't want to lower the bar to them. I want to see art depict how men should and could act. And this is not that. This is not how we should and could act. It's not how we should act, and how we could act. I'm just nonplussed by how we could act, in Shang-Chi.
It's crazy. So, a few months back, my 6-year-old, he kind of, he was in the room with the 2-year-old. We're right outside the door, but you need to stay in here and hang out with him, make sure he's all right. And he walks out the door and he shuts it. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, I came to say something to you. I said, you need to watch your brother. If you're going to come out, you have to bring him with you. You can't leave him alone. It's like, you could never leave your brother alone. It was like, this entire time you guys are going to be together, you're going to have each other, and you need to look after him. And then eventually he's going to be old enough to look after you. So I'm having the exact same conversations you were having. I just didn't happen to see Shang-Chi, but instilling this idea that you have to look out for each other. You can't abandon each other.
Yeah. When you have 4 kids, it's very easy for them to sort of frustrate each other, annoy each other. It's the typical whatever, but it is the parents' responsibility to instill and show those things. I don't like yelling. I've been trying to lessen the amount that I will get frustrated at my children. I think, it kind of teaches them the wrong things. But I'll get very frustrated when they are beating each other up and hurting each other or teasing each other. And I literally, I've had so many conversations with them where I'm like, do we get into arguments when it's just you and I? The only time I'm upset with you is because you're hurting the other person that I love. I love them just as much as I love you. And when the one person that I love beats the crap out of the other person I love, I don't know what to do but freak out. Because I'm in a moral conundrum of like, I don't want to have to yell at you because I love you, but you are literally attacking the other source of my love and my passion. And I need you guys to recognize that, this is like a paradox for me. And I need you to help me figure out what we do. How do we make things nice? Because this is the situation that we're in. But it's funny, I find a lot of times, my children are the first people to really get what the morally right thing to do is. You watch the movie and somebody goes, oh my God, are they going to do anything about that? And like, you'll know that, oh no, well, circumstances, like nobody's going to be able to do anything about that. The government's come to get him now. It just is what it is, like whatever it is. But they're sitting there going like, oh my God, obviously something needs to be done. Obviously that dog shouldn't be hit. Obviously they shouldn't hurt that thing. That thing's alive, but a lot of movies and people, like, I get this because when I was younger, there was a moment where Superman sort of upset me. Because like, just as an idea, I was like, without reading Superman comics, I was bothered by Superman because he was just perfect. And that seemed like this ideal that I couldn't reach. And when I finally started reading some great Superman comics, like Joe Kelly's What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, and other great, runs of Superman where people took that idea that it's a silly notion to find a better way. The Man of Steel broke my heart. Like, I felt like I was the little boy from Iron Giant, like going, say it ain't so, Superman. Because he doesn't find a better way. He just snaps the dude's neck. And Superman at his best is the idyllic idea of a man who could do if you could literally do anything, what would you do with that power? And Superman's always searching to find the better way. And if a better person and a better way came along tomorrow, that would change the bar, would raise the bar higher. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a constantly raising bar where we're trying to figure out the way to do it best. Like, I'm an idealist and I've always been that way. And that's what I'm looking to do. I want to be the best man that I can be in my life. I don't want to give into deceit, and I don't want to give into cheating. If I'm going to get into a fight with somebody who's got one arm, I will put one arm behind my back. I famously, when I was a little kid, I fought this guy who was beating up my friend, and I was kind of beating the crap out of him. And at a certain time, my friend started to try to kick him, and immediately, it took a second, but I went 2-on-1. No, not good. And I stopped my friend and I ended the fight. And that's what you're supposed to do. I'm a football player. I'm actually a national champion semi-pro football player because I'm not a big guy, but my father's really big, and he kind of, a little bit of like the baby boomer thing. They were beaten by their parents, and then they kind of were a little intimidating, I think in general, to try to, so I don't have to hit my kid. I'll just scare them. And scaring me thing set me on a path to sort of prove to myself that I wasn't afraid of anything. So I became a 5'9" football player, and I would just smash my body into the biggest people that I could find just to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid. And I really am generally a fearless person. But as you go through football, a lot of times you'll find hazing takes place. And usually it's with the new guys, the younger guys, whatever it is. And I remember I was a junior, sophomore on the varsity team, and I was being hazed. And then when I was a senior, the first day, one of my teammates tried to haze the underclassmen. I stopped them. I said, no, why would we do that? Don't you remember how we hated when that was done to us just last year? Let's not do that. That is about pursuing the ideal. And I won't judge anybody for taking the easy way out or whatever it might be, but I have to myself. I want to go as best as I can. I want to find the place where I can be the most honest and the most true and raise the bar the highest. And I am only interested in politicians who are doing the same thing. I'm only interested in a world that is being led by people like me. And if they are not, then I want them out of there. I'm not, well, they took money from, no, get them the hell out of that situation. I want an honest person. This is why I care about superhero comics. And I believe that half the people who read and watch and care about these things, they care about the same things that I care about. That's why they are watching myths and not watching the bullshit docudramas that are on freaking CBS. I don't want to see dramatic, romantic, oh, he cheated. No, I want relationships that are nice, about people who really mean the things that they say. I want a world where we can be honest and we can mean what we say. And if we fuck up, we freaking learn from it and we try to be better tomorrow than we were yesterday. And I just can't live in this morally ambiguous world. And I feel like people just sort of stopped. They were like, well, I can't meet that bar. So instead, I'm going to just
bring the bar down to me.
Pull it around down here to my... I'm not interested in that at all. I mean, there are things to be learned from these situations sometimes, and there's art to be had and listening to the Greys, but not in the realm of a Superman comic. I don't want to see this, oh no, well, he's not as great as we thought. No, I want you to show me how he is that great and how he continues to rise to the occasion and how he handles gender politics and racial politics better than anybody else. I want to see that fucking story. I don't want to see the damn story where he's apologizing. I want to see the story where he's handling it better than anybody else could. That's what I want people to create, not some sort of, oh, I'm sorry for being white and powerful. Fuck that. Screw that. I don't care about that story. I want to see better. I want to see us learn from him. There's nothing to learn from backpedaling on greatness.
Yeah, it's crazy. You recently obviously had the Brian Michael Bendis Superman run. And I remember the moment that his father, Jor-El, he was Oz, obviously, during the previous run. I think Jurgens was doing that story. And he arrives and he's like, I'm going to take your son, your 10-year-old son, into space. And Clark Kent knows that his father is insane. And he's like, well, I don't want you to take him to space. And then John, who's 10, is like, but I really want to go, Dad. And then Clark's like, well, it sounds like there's nothing I can do about it. It's like, who is this character? Like, is this my alcoholic uncle or is this Superman? Like, there's no way Clark Kent would ever abandon his child to a crazy person to take him into space and lose him.
I think the worst sins of Brian Michaels Bendis' Superman run, and granted, I haven't read it because once I started hearing a bunch of different things about it, I was like, I'm just not interested at all. I haven't been interested in his work for a long time, but was what he did to Lois Lane. I'm a songwriter, and when you write songs, you're essentially writing the shortest story imaginable. So each word you kind of got to take to its fullest conclusion, the most extreme meaning of what it can mean. And for me, Lois Lane being so interested in the moral ideal meant that she was interested in the moral ideal. So for her to do all these wishy-washy, flibby-flobby, well, I'm a reporter, and sometimes reporters are dickholes. No. She is interested in the highest ideal. That means that even if she messes up, she's supposed to be learning from it and changing, not defending her shitty morals. She treats him shit. He's like a freaking, what's the word that they like to use? A cuckold. Yeah, like he's just allowing himself to be abused and be lowered by her behavior in his direction, her disrespect towards him. And it's just, it's deplorable. I showed you this before, and I decided to write down the Steve Ditko interview, most of it word for word, in my How to Draw Marvel Comics the Marvel Way, and I underlined a couple pieces, and one of them is a hero measures a man at his best in the worst situations. A hero is a man admired for his qualities or achievements and regarded as an ideal or a model. art is a measuring stick. Something cannot be blue and red at the same time. It's either blue or it's red. It can be half blue and half red, or it can be blue with red stripes, but it can't be, it's half blue and red and half blue and red. It can't be. It is one or the other. That is the thing of art. Is he smiling? Is he frowning? This is what we know from art. There is no, oh, my intuition said he was actually happy even though he was frowning. No, art is just, here are the lines on the paper, and I am trying to imitate life as perfectly as I can. This is the sad, this is the happy. This is good, this is bad. One or the other, okay? It's an ideal, a model. Superman is a model for how we can be, who we can be. Batman is a model for the far reaches of man's achievement physically and mentally. Granted, morally, Batman can be a little bit more of a wibbly wobbly sort of character. And there's lots of that interesting wibbly wobbly. I was thinking about this beforehand. A character like Magneto that we really like that kind of seems like a contradiction to this. He's not a contradiction. He is the perfect villain because he is using his ideal to corrupt himself. His ideal is what is corrupting his judgment and making him villainous. And we can see that he is a villain because it doesn't matter why you're doing it. You're doing it. You're being a bad guy. Stop being a bad guy. It's not about, Cyclops was right. Cyclops was not right. He's not right. He's wrong. Cyclops was wrong when he became like Magneto. Magneto is wrong. He's always been wrong. It's tragic that he has the capacity for goodness, that he can see and appreciate why goodness and the ideal should exist, but he's not the ideal. He is not the ideal. He is not Martin Luther King Jr. He is not handling it the correct way. He's handling it the incorrect way. And that is what is on display every time you read an X-Men comic. And it's a tragedy, and it's powerful, and it's wonderful because he is fallen from that ideal into a villainous position.
Yeah, Magneto is interesting because he does have a superhero origin, right? During World War II, in the concentration camps and all that stuff, loses his family. That is a traditional superhero origin. You have the loss, you have the tragedy that springs the characters' moral fibers and galvanizes their principles as they elevate themselves. But he never did that. He went down the other path where it could make you. It's the dichotomy. You could go evil from this. And that's why you have so many kind of arch nemesis of a Batman character that have similar origins, but they turned and they went the wrong path.
Well, it's really cool. Like, I've become a spiritualist in my modern, age, my old age, whatever. And, when you learn spiritual law, what you learn about is polarity. Essentially the three first laws of the universe is we're all one. We're all mind. We're all a giant mind. Like literally solidity, liquidity, space, time, all concepts, all ideas. One thing that is based on other things, that is based on many things. But we're one thing that is split apart, and it is all ideation. Because of the splitting of the one thing that was essentially nothing for a long time and then became something, there is something we live in which is called polarity. Polarity is yes, no, hot, cold. Hot and cold are not two things. They're one thing. It's temperature. Where is the temperature? The temperature is hot. The temperature is cold. But the temperature is the one thing we are describing. Is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? It's both. It's simultaneously both things. Half empty and half full are just perspectives on the thing that we are taking. Okay? So in order to learn and understand which way to go, which is the more ideal part, and really idealism says that, that there is an ideal, but the polarity states that basically we have to have an appreciation for the other side. The ideal is to look at the glass and go, oh, look, there's water in it. I'm so excited. The less ideal thing is to acknowledge that, well, it's not as full as it could be. Sure, I can acknowledge that in balance without being taken to a negative place and just still appreciate that there's a decent amount of water in the cup and I'd like to drink it, right? Mm-hmm. So within the context of Magneto and these things, these are the other two things that I underline. It says, if it is impossible to know what is true and to do what is right, then the flaw, the worst, will be the new standard of good. This is the weird slippery slope of the times we are living in. If it's you can't. No, you can't. You can. And if you can't, then we are turning the new standard of good to a wishly-washly gray. I know they took money from the people, but all the politicians do that. Screw you. I am still waiting on my Superman. And it says down here, the resentment against the perfect hero is a resentment against A is A, against the integration of truth and behavior, against the non-contradictory identity of a moral ideal, against reality and life's measuring ruler as a rational moral standard. I think we all can look at a person who can see and a person who can't see and say, that person has a little bit more going on there. There's nothing wrong with the person who can't see, but it is a better world when we can all see. This is the simple measuring standard that we have. And in trying to take the edge off the knife of the idea that there might be a better or a worse, like, I'm sorry, like if you're overweight, I'm sorry, man. If you were less weighted, you could run faster. That is a better thing. You would be happier if you had less weight on your body. That is just a reality. It doesn't matter that people have been jerks about the fact that somebody might be overweight. That sucks. That's not fair. That's judgment. That's discrimination. I am not advocating for judgment or discrimination, but I am advocating for reality, for us to recognize that it would be great if all of the blind people could see. It would be great if we could help the people who couldn't run as fast because they were so held down by weight, if they could lose some of that weight so that they could live healthier and happier lives. These are reasonable things. It's not a moral conundrum that we have. It isn't. It's very clear what the better choice would be. And changing up the language and changing up the way that we're talking about these things until we can't really understand what would be better for everybody is just, it's insanity. It's stopping us from being able to realize the Superman. I'm not Superman. I got some muscles, but I don't got muscles like Superman. I want to. And I'm going to keep fighting until I'm not injured anymore. I got hit by a car when I was 11. I spent the past 10 years fixing myself from the injury that I never healed. And now I'm finally getting back in the gym. And you know what? I want to look like Superman. But when I was a kid, I was a little intimidated. He-Man is walking around with no shirt on, and he's got fucking huge muscles. And it is intimidating, and it is a lot to live up to. Well, I'd rather live up to an ideal than go make excuses for my scrawniness. That's bullshit. Let's not do that. Let's find our way to the better. Let's find our way to the inspiration. And it's these characters, it's Superman living in a world and where he's not judgy and a dick, where he's going around doing the right thing, speaking the right way, that makes us go, I want to be like him. He doesn't make me feel bad for who I am. It was me just looking at Superman from outside that made me not like Superman. Reading Superman when he was written by writers who cared about what they were working on made me just go, man, I wish I was him. I wish I could be like that. Oh, it's going to make me cry. But I wish I could live at that level all the time. And I wish I wouldn't take the easy way out of some situation. I wish I wouldn't stop pushing myself when I was on that mile run. I wish I could keep going. I wish I wasn't so afraid. And if I had more courage, I would be like him. And that is the world that I want to live in, a world with a lot more courage. And Shang-Chi doesn't have the courage to go back and save his sister. And it is awful that this is the type of superhero that they are inventing, because Shang-Chi is not based on the comics. He is not at all like his comic book predecessor. So you can't compare it to the comic books. It always makes me mad when people look at the comic books and they go, oh, it's really great what Hollywood did with that character. No, the great ones are great because they took the greatness that was in the comics, that was in the source material, and they brought it to the big screen. The shitty ones are shitty because they didn't.
Hey, you look like a movie like Venom. My wife asked me, she's like, was Venom good? Was that a good Venom movie? I was like, it was a good movie. I don't think it was a good Venom movie. Is that really the character?
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, the weird thing about the Venom movie was just like when he changes his clothes, he literally kills a guy. In the recent one, Cletus kills a dude so he can steal his suit. I'm like, that's like the main power number one of the Venom symbiote costume. It can become any article of clothing that you want. Has anyone read a comic book here that wrote this movie? And there was multiple times where I was watching the movie going, I don't think anyone in this office has read a comic book.
Nah, they took bits and pieces to make it aesthetically look and feel maybe like a Venom thing, but they ripped the heart and soul of everything out of it, which is happening more and more. And I get what you're saying. I think it's done out of an idea of politeness. Well, Superman can't be so perfect because that will shame people that can't live up to that. So let's bring him down to our level, and that way we could all be Superman. And I'm with you. Do not bring him down to my level. Make me raise myself up to that level. It's unattainable. But every day that I try to raise the bar for myself is a day I'm a better version of myself. That's a day that my son has a better father. That's the day that my wife has a better husband. And that's a day of progression in myself. And sure, we're all going to step back and we're going to have pitfalls along the way. But don't be dumbing things down on my behalf, because I know that I need to get better. But there's this weird misconception out there that anything out there that could offend people, that this is something I could never be, just can't be there anymore because it could hurt people's feelings.
And it's terrible. It really is. It's a form of corruption, that politeness. And, when I see a movie with a really sweet dad who's like reprimanding their children in like this really calm way, I feel badly about myself. I do, but it's okay. It's good. It's showing me that this is what I want to be. I don't want to be the guy who gets compromised under the wrong circumstances and feels the need to yell. Like, I don't want to be that dad. I want to be the dad who shows up and doesn't. And it's because of all those movies, and it's because of all the times that I, have shamed myself for not behaving the way I would like to behave, that I don't really yell very much anymore. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty solid dad. I generally, like, now I cry to my kids. Like when I start to get really mad, I just go,
do you want to make daddy cry?
Please tell me. Shake.
It's crazy, because when we were younger, you had Dr. Huxtable, you had Uncle Phil, you had all these great father role models out there that were really there in entertainment. That's been wiped out. Every dad that's been portrayed out there is essentially a boob. And
the fathers, man, everybody loves Raymond model of fathers. I mean, I'm separated, and honestly, I tell you, everybody loves Raymond model of fathers. The energy of what a man is and how a man should be treated. That is part of what broke up my relationship. I am not an idiot. I am not some fool. And to be treated as one, like this assumption that all men are just horny. I'm not. Do not assume that I am. And it's just very, very frustrating to me where we've come, that sort of like the stereotype of a guy, or the negative stereotypes have become the predominant features of all men. And, and it's this terrible thing of like, not all men, but it isn't all men. It's a small percentage of jerk-offs. They end up representing the bulk of the herd. Most men that I know are insecure and aren't as forthright and aren't quick to hit on the lady. And, it's like this guy who's running around dating everyone, cheating on everyone. It's like a dude who's willing to date 10 chicks at once. He can corrupt that much of the population with hhis terrible nature and, who he is. It's the guy who's the nice guys finish last. They say that for a reason. Most of the nice guys, we're getting marginalized, and a nice guy isn't as interesting to write about, right? It's like, well, what, we're gonna just write about my nice dad who was just always there for me and like really cool and provided for the family and was just kind of stoic and quiet and suffered from back problems his entire life and didn't say anything to anybody because he just you just didn't want to make everybody's day worse than what. Those are plenty of the men in our society, and those guys aren't spoken about, and it makes me upset because I'm a guy who opens his mouth and I say something, but most of the guys aren't like me. I'm a good guy who will open his mouth and say something, and I come off sometimes, I think for other people, it's like I'm pushy. But I'm pushy because there are so many wonderful people being marginalized, and they're not willing to open their mouth and defend themselves. So I will open my mouth. I will defend these people because there are more of them than there are these morally corrupt people. And, we have this whole idea of, the matriarchy is taken. The patriarchy is taken its claws. We need the matriarchy. That's true. Except what you learn when you learn spiritual law, which we don't learn in school, is that gender, the law of gender, states that there's only two energies in our environment, masculine and feminine. Masculine and feminine energy exist in everyone, in all things. Every man is not just masculine or feminine. He's masculine and feminine. This is why so many people are so confused about who they are or what they should be, or, what their sex is or what their gender is. We are both. We are masculine and feminine. I tend to be a more feminine guy. I have learned how to be masculine because, my family's very sort of masculine in how they go about their life, but more in protection, to protect themselves from the people out there. But I'm more feminine. I'm like, Jim Henson's my idol, and I love the Muppets. I'm really a softie. So, I could have easily been like, well, am I gay, or am I this, or am I that, or what am I? I'm weird. I don't know what to be. I walk around work sometimes, and I got my wrists hanging out like this. I'm very feminine, in who I am on a lot of levels. But I realize that this is just the balancing of all things, and to replace the patriarchy with a matriarchy filled with masculine women. And I don't mean masculine in I'm Janet Reno. I don't mean physically masculine. I mean mentally masculine. Masculinity is dominance. We need a matriarchy that is loving and empathetic, and that exists in men and it exists in women. It is not a fully, just women are capable. No, men and women are both capable of being feminine and being loving and caring and empathetic to people. It's not just because you're this sex, you're this. That's the mistake that has everybody so confused about what they are. And if we were taught when we were young that you could be either thing, it would be a lot easier, I think, for people to be like, oh, I get it. Yeah, I'm a guy, I'm straight, or I'm gay, or I'm this, but I'm a little bit that, or I'm a little bit that. When you go into the gay community, it's not, they're all feminine guys. They're not. It's a feminine guy, and then here's his boyfriend who's a masculine guy. And sometimes it's a feminine guy and a feminine guy, sometimes it's a masculine guy. It's a lot of different paradigms. But it's not one thing. And this notion, this superficial, very superficial notion that I think comes from basically the money people, the executive people, the less compassionate people who tend to dictate terms from on high, not the creative people. The creative people are a mix, and they see that things are a mix. They see that things are nuanced. But the creative, superficial people, they want to keep everything in a box. You're a man, you're a masculine, you're a woman, you're a feminine. That's not how it goes. I'm a very feminine man. There are plenty of men who are balanced on some fashion, and everybody is, in some way or another, balanced in their masculinity and their femininity, whether they admit to it or not. And it's just such a misnomer, and it leads us to all sorts of screwed up things. I'd say Superman's very feminine.
When I was in the military, they used to call me the crew mom. Because whenever I would come in, I would make sure everyone had eaten. Have you eaten yet? You got any food? Well, I brought in some pierogies, or I brought in some donuts for breakfast. And they're like, "Why do you feed us every day?" So, you guys got to eat, right? I can't have you hungry. I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah, no, and I mean, we need those people. Those people exist, across the board. It's not exclusive to one sex or the other. And on every football team has that guy who cares about the team and is like, you limp off the field and they come right up to you and they go, "You all right? You injured? You sure you're going to go in? I'll talk to the coach." And that's it. We need that. And we need to look for those traits in people. We don't need to look for boobs and long hair. We need to look for empathy. That's what we need to be looking for. Who are the empathetic people among us? Who are the people who are demonstrating the level of care that Superman shows when he goes, "Well, I could kill you, or maybe I could handle this a better way." What would be the better way? That's some maternal thinking. What would be the better way to handle this?
Absolutely. We're definitely seeing a lot of different iterations and changes as Superman, but I don't know, we're about 45 minutes. This is probably we went long enough kind of talking about Shang-Chi, some of the issues you had with it, where you end up having to talk to your kids about some of the moral fiber of the film or what was lacking. And we are seeing that in all comic books. We're seeing that in all towards the entertainment. As a father with 6-year-old son on down to a 4-month-old, I can't just put on a show from Netflix that says it's for kids 4 and older anymore. You have to watch that stuff because there's a lot of weird messaging in there that can definitely screw people up, or definitely kids up, as far as what's right and wrong, responsibility and stuff like that. It's a minefield out there for dads like us.
It really is. And, you got to be vigilant and ready to redirect your kids to where the higher bar is. Because I really believe that if you know where the high bar is, you can't help but lean in its direction when given a chance. But if that high bar starts to get all muddy and that's really what's been happening, that high bar has been getting muddy, and I don't want to see it get muddy. I want to see it nice and tried and true. There are ways to be, more ideal than ever, more moral than ever. And, a lot of people will hear the word moral. They're like, wow, they'll think of sort of religious morals and things like that, but live and let live is a moral. Thou shalt not judge is a moral, and if you're sticking with those two paramount, and I do, those two paramount, that I want to do unto you what I would wish to have done unto me. I want your freedom to be respected. I want my freedom to be respected. I want us both to be equally respected. I don't believe in this world where, I've got the high position. Now it's my turn to tread on you. It's, this is interesting. One last little story. I was talking to a friend of mine, who I won't name, but a good friend of mine, and he's a black guy, and really powerful, imposing, handsome dude. He's really like got everything going for him. And we're talking about racial swaps, about this anime and this movie, and they change the race of that character, they change the race of that character, and we're just like, this sucks and sucks and sucks. And we finally get to Wally West, and I go, and Wally West, I named my kid after Wally West. That character and his his desire to honor Barry's mantle, that just spoke to me so much, as a son, and the oldest son, and my father. I wanted to honor what my father stood and represented for. And he goes, I don't care about that. And I said, what do you mean you don't care about that? He says, he's white. White people have been doing it to him for forever. I don't care. That really changed our relationship, really changed how I felt about him, because that is bullshit. That is bullshit. I've gotten into the power position, and now I don't care when it switches back the other way. I am now on the varsity football team, and now I am going to haze the underclassmen. Fuck you. Fuck you for hazing the underclassmen. Fuck you for getting into the power position and doing the same terrible thing that had just happened to you. You're supposed to learn from what happened to you and do it better. And it frustrates me to be a white man in this world, on some level, in that I'm not a good arbiter of pointing that out. That for me to say, hey, that's not right. Yesterday I was screaming from high heaven that we didn't know the proper history in America and what we did to the freaking Native Americans. And now that people have a freaking inkling, there are people who are willing to go, well, now let's give it to them. I'm not them. And there are plenty of people who are not them. Our forefathers allowed to be put in charge and dictate these sort of terms, they don't exist anymore. You can't punish them anymore. All we have is the people who are here today. And we need to do it better today than we did it yesterday. Or the same feelings of inferiority and superiority and inferiority will just continue to perpetuate for forever. And who wants that? I want to live in the world that is ideal, the beautiful world that Superman lives in. And Superman isn't a white guy. He's a Kryptonian. He's from another planet. And he's here, and he's trying to live up to the idyllic standards that were taught to him by his middle American father, who was just going off of what he was taught was what America was supposed to be. And what America is supposed to be is an amazing thing. What America has become and has been, even though we claim all these great ideals, that sucks. But what America is supposed to be is and will always be a great thing. There is a reason why so many millions of people came here from their country to go to America. If you've seen, Feifel goes, we're going to go to America, Feifel. America, the way people would say and think of America. That's what I think of when I think of America. Captain America has always represented that in the face of corruption, dropping the Captain America thing at times when he felt like his country wasn't living up to the ideals that were within him. You know, that is amazing. That is something to strive for. Why are we lowering this bar? It's just so disappointing.
Absolutely. Well, I do want to say thank you very much to Jesse Blaze Snider. You got any big shows coming up? I don't. Do you still do stuff with the Food Network? I got to talk to you about this one day.
Oh, well, my show Food Paradise is on pretty much like every week. It's on all the time. I think it's on Food Network now. And I'm actually working on Top Secret, something for Come On, they do like tabletop gaming, and I'm working on a comic book for one of their properties, which I'm really, really excited about. So that's the main stuff that I'm working on right now. And I got a new music project, but it's a little bit in the future. But next time I'm on when it's appropriate, I'll give the word.
All right. Well, next time you hear the smooth, dulcet tones of Jesse Blaze Snider, it's likely to be on your TV, and you might not even realize it's him.
You know what? I should say every week on Thursday night, I do a show on my YouTube channel, which I think is just Jesse Blaze Snider, or it's like YouTube Watch Jesse, and it's called The Live Stream of Consciousness. And I talk about all sorts of these very high moral ideals based on universal law. I used to teach a universal law class out on Long Island, and now me and my buddy Michael Zinn, we talk about spirituality and enlightenment, and sort of becoming conscious people and living more consciously, more empathetically. And if you're interested in any of the more kind of spiritual things that I've said, come join us next time. Tomorrow night, Thursday 6, we're live, 6 LA time.
There'll definitely be a link in the video description. There's also going to be a link up here at the end of the show. If you just want to go over there and subscribe to the channel, I definitely recommend that. Thank you very much, Jesse. And I think you're going to be back on the channel a couple more times, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.